The wedding hall was filled with soft music and smiling faces. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect for what was about to happen. The bride stood at the altar, holding her breath, waiting for her forever to begin. But then, the doors at the back slowly opened. A man stepped inside. Calm. Quiet. Holding a worn brown folder against his chest. No one knew who invited him. No one expected him. But the bride did. Her smile faded instantly. "Dad?" she whispered. Across the room, her mother turned slowly. Phoebe Haley froze. For a moment, the entire hall felt like it stopped breathing. Because the man standing there was not just any guest. He was the past they all thought was buried. And he was about to reveal something that had been hidden for 5 long years. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. But no one in that room was ready for what he was about to say. Seth Haley did not live a loud life. He lived a quiet one built on repetition and care. His mornings did not begin with alarms or rush. They began with silence. He would sit at the edge of his bed for a few seconds before standing up, just listening to the house breathe. Then he would walk to Abby's room, slowly opening the door without making a sound, just to see her sleeping. That was his habit. Not because he was afraid, but because peace felt temporary to him. "Dad, you always check on me like I'm gonna disappear," Abby once said with a sleepy smile. Seth just laughed softly. "I just like knowing you're still here," he replied. Abby Haley was his world. Bright. Focused. Kind in ways she didn't even notice. She had her mother's eyes. And her father's silence. Seth made sure she had everything she needed. School. Meals. Support. Even when he didn't have enough for himself. Phoebe Haley was no longer part of their daily life. She left years ago. Not in anger. Not in drama. Just distance. A slow fading out that left Seth alone with responsibility and questions he stopped asking. Blake Panton, his best friend, used to push him. "You can't keep pretending she'll explain herself one day," Blake said. Seth just shrugged. "People leave for reasons they don't always say out loud." Blake didn't like that answer. But he stopped arguing. Because Seth never stopped showing up for Abby. School events. Parent meetings. Birthdays. He was always there. Front row. Quiet. Present. But at night, when Abby slept, Seth carried the weight of silence alone. Bills. Memories. Questions he never answered. And then one day, everything changed with a single letter. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. Because what Seth was hiding was not just pain. It was a promise he never told anyone about. The envelope looked normal. That was the first mistake. Seth almost ignored it. But Phoebe Haley's name stopped him. His fingers tightened slightly before he opened it. Inside was a hospital bill. Then another. Then another. Dates. Treatments. Amounts that didn't feel real. He sat down slowly. The room felt heavier. Phoebe was sick. And had been for a long time. He hadn't known. Or maybe, she never told him. The next morning, Seth went to the hospital. No appointment. No plan. Just answers. Mrs. Stanfield met him at the desk. "You're Seth Haley," she said softly. He nodded. Her expression changed slightly. "She listed you as emergency contact," she added. Seth froze. That didn't make sense. Not after everything. "What happened to her?" he asked. Mrs. Stanfield lowered her voice. "Long-term illness," she said. "Treatment has been ongoing for years." Years. That word hit harder than anything else. Seth leaned against the counter. "She never told me," he said quietly. Mrs. Stanfield looked away. "She didn't want to burden anyone," Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Seth looked at the bill again. Fear. Debt. Pain hidden behind paper. Then he made a decision. Send everything to me, he said. Mrs. Stanfield blinked. Are you sure? Seth nodded. I'll handle it. And that was it. No questions. No conditions. Just responsibility. Month after month, the bills came. And Seth paid them. Quietly. Without telling Abby. Without telling Phoebe. Without telling anyone. Blake eventually noticed. You're working yourself into the ground, Blake warned. Seth didn't stop. Why are you doing this? Blake asked again. Seth hesitated. Because she's still Abby's mother, he said finally. Blake shook his head. That doesn't explain 5 years of silence. Seth had no answer for that. Because the truth was not simple. It never was. And what he was carrying was only getting heavier. The years didn't stop the bills. They only stretched them out. Month after month. Seth adjusted everything around them. His work hours increased. His sleep decreased. His personal needs disappeared slowly. But Abby never noticed the full truth. She only saw her father as steady. Always there. Always present. Dad, do you ever rest? She asked one night. Seth smiled. I rest when you're okay, he said. Abby didn't question it further. Because she believed him. And that belief mattered more than anything. But Seth was not okay. Not really. Blake saw it clearly. You're not just tired, Blake said one evening. You're carrying something you're not sharing. Seth looked away. I'm fine, he said. But Blake didn't believe him. And neither did time. Then came the news. Abby was getting married. She told him at the kitchen table. Her hands slightly shaking with excitement. I met someone, she said softly. Seth listened carefully. And I think I'm ready, she added. That moment hit him harder than expected. Not because he wasn't happy, but because it marked change. Real change. Abby was moving forward. And Phoebe would be part of the wedding. That detail stayed in Seth's mind longer than anything else. Phoebe Haley was coming back. After years of silence. Seth didn't react at first. He just nodded. Okay, he said quietly. But inside, something tightened. Not anger. Not resentment. Just unfinished history. The hospital records sat in a folder at home. Unopened most days. Until Seth started reviewing them again. Not out of doubt. But out of necessity. Because something inside him was changing. And he didn't know how to stop it. The wedding day arrived quickly. Seth stood outside the venue for a long moment. The folder in his hand felt heavier than ever. Inside, laughter echoed. Music played. A new chapter was beginning. But Seth was not there for celebration alone. He was there because truth could no longer stay hidden. He took a slow breath and walked inside. The ceremony had already begun. Abby stood at the front. Beautiful. Nervous. Phoebe sat in the second row. Watching. Still. Seth entered quietly. At first, no one noticed. Then Abby did. Her eyes widened. Dad? She whispered. Phoebe turned slowly. And froze. The room shifted instantly. Seth walked forward. Slow. Steady. I'm sorry, he said softly. I need to say something before this continues. The officiant stepped back. Silence took over. Seth held up the folder. Phoebe frowned. What is that? She asked. Seth looked at her. 5 years, he said. Phoebe blinked. Confused. He handed the folder to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Page after page. Numbers. Records. Proof. Her breath stopped. No, she whispered. This can't be real. Seth nodded gently. It is. Phoebe's voice broke. You did this? Seth didn't hesitate. Yes. The room stayed silent. Abby stepped closer. Why didn't you tell us? She asked softly. Seth looked at her. I didn't do it for credit, he said. Then back at Phoebe. I did it because you were still her mother. Phoebe covered her mouth, tears falling instantly. She had no words. Only realization. 5 years of hidden sacrifice. Standing right in front of her. And everything she thought she knew collapsed quietly. The ceremony did not continue immediately. No one rushed the moment. No one spoke. Phoebe sat down slowly, still holding the papers. I didn't know, she kept repeating. Seth stood nearby. Calm. Still. Not asking for anything. Just present. Abby stepped between them. Her voice was soft but steady. You both loved me in different ways, she said. But neither of you stopped. That truth settled in the room. Phoebe looked at Seth. I thought I was alone, she admitted. Seth nodded slowly. You weren't, he said. Silence followed again. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. Gradually, the ceremony resumed. Not perfectly. Not normally. But honestly. Phoebe stayed. Seth stayed. Abby stood at the altar again. This time with more understanding in her heart. Because family had just changed shape in front of her eyes. And somehow, it felt real again. Some sacrifices are never spoken aloud. They live in silence. In choices no one sees. In years that pass without recognition. Seth Haley never told anyone what he was doing. Not because he was hiding. But because he didn't need credit for love. He only needed it to matter. And it did. Maybe not immediately. But eventually. At a wedding where truth could no longer stay hidden. Abby saw her father differently that day. Not just as the man who raised her. But as someone who carried pain quietly so she could have peace loudly. Phoebe saw it too. Not as guilt. But as understanding. That love does not always disappear when people leave. Sometimes, it just changes form. If you're watching this right now, and you've ever done something for someone who never knew, then you understand Seth more than you think. Before we close, take a moment and reflect. Have you ever carried something silently for someone else? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story touched you, take a second and like the video. It helps more than you know. If you're a single parent, share your story too. Your strength matters. Your silence matters. And your journey matters. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to The Redeemed Single Dad, where stories remind us that even in silence, love still speaks. Thank you for watching.